For all the people getting paper, we are not for sale. For all the doubters and the haters, we are not for sale. For all the movers and the shakers, we are not for sale. For all the givers and the takers, we are not for sale. Nah, we are not for sale. We are not for sale.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. This is episode 9 of the Minute podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Augustus, and my partner and co-host today is a good friend of mine. His name is Darryl Mcclain. Darryl Mcclain, man, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Doing good.
That's good, man. Before we go any further, I want to remind everybody to please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button. Helps the algorithm and gets us more views. Tell everyone that you know. Tell your people to subscribe and like the podcast. It's been a minute. That is, it's been a minute podcast. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple and YouTube. So Darryl, man, I hit you up about coming on. I know that it was going to be a lot different episode than the things that we usually talk about. And I'm glad, and I really wanted to expound on certain things other than just like sports. And before we go like too deep into it, kind of introduce yourself and tell people who you are, and tell some of the things that you were interested in, to kind of give people the preview of what we're going to get into today.
Well, my name is Darryl Mcclain. I'm 31. For a living, I'm an environmental project manager for the state. I do environmental cleanup, things like that. On the side, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm working on my brand and taking it to the next level. Also, I'm pretty savvy when it comes to like finances, economics, and things like that.
That's good, man. Couldn't be. I've talked to you about a lot of things over the years, and I've always been impressed by your intelligence and your disposition. We've agreed on a lot of things, especially what's going on this year, but from the things that are going on in the government, not to get too political. Fortunately, you kind of have to sometimes, though, because this is the world we live in, and everything is tied to politics, and everything is tied to the government, and because it affects how people act and how people behave, and that's actually something we're going to talk about later on in the episode too. So, all right, enough wasting time here. First topic, man. I think you had it on here was about financial literacy, if I'm not mistaken, or was that the second one? Or financial solutions, man. So what did you want to get into with that?
Well, I just was going to talk about that briefly, but basically with everything that's going on with a lot of people's livelihood, a lot more people are struggling than not. And oftentimes, like, we get online, we rant about these type of things, but I do think we have to make room for solutions and start having solution-based conversations. And part of those solution-based conversations involve us talking about our habits, our spending habits, and what the next direction is going to be as far as, what we're going to do, working towards a solution, perhaps a business idea or something like that. So that's kind of all I was going to talk about. Just jotting down ideas, brainstorming, maybe even talking with friends, trusted friends, about different solutions, different ideas that, you could, chime together and brainstorm and come up with a business idea or something and work together and launch something new that can bring you some income.
All right, cool beans, man. Well, let's get into it, man. You want to go and start us off? What's on first thing on your list? What's the big thing that you want to tackle as far as that? Like, what
Well,
are your estimation?
with what I've got going on right now, I'm in the process of fine tuning my credit. A lot of times, whenever like it comes to, especially with up and coming businesses, a lot of people they have the ideas, they have the will, but they just don't have the capital. And so sometimes you just kind of have to leverage the capital to be able to execute the idea. And or even if you already have executed the idea and you want to take it to the next level, sometimes you have to leverage capital to do it. Um, and this is especially true if you know it's an income producing type of business idea, and you have the ability to pay your bills on time. There's nothing wrong with leveraging a little bit of extra capital to take your business to the next level.
Okay. All right. Um, what avenue can you use that in as far as like, uh, I guess what I'm trying to ask is like what avenue can you use that like to get that out to people, more people that we know, or just in general, like is that something that you just kind of talk to people about, like at random? Does it kind of come up in conversation, or how does that work?
A little bit of all of those. Like a lot of times I talk to my friends about it, just about first making sure that your personal bills are paid, and that's important too. But also about how, not the pocket watch, but how to use your disposable income. Using it toward things that produce more money. Um, if you are struggling with your credit, getting your credit repaired, doing things like that makes it more attractive to you to be able to access, funding for your business idea and to take your goals and whatever you're trying to achieve to the next level.
Now, as far as uh getting that idea out there, like what is where do you think you can start? Like, is that somewhere that can maybe start in the household? Does it start at work in your job? Where could that start at? Is this something like having a conversation like, hey, let's start this thing like right now? Like, where do you think that starts at?
Well, I mean, it starts with yourself. Like if you're wanting to get your credit fixed and things like that, the first thing that you have to do is address your habits. Um, if you're a frivolous spender, you have to kind of unlearn frivolous spending. And then I have a personal guy, he's helped me with my credit over the last couple years or so. And he also helps with the business credit thing. He has connections with the right credit unions and banks to where you can access business funding once your credit score is up to par. And then when I get that, my objective is to take my business idea to the next level, to further it with a complete platform, fine tune it, simulate it, and then launch it, like officially launch it. So that's where I'm at right now.
That sounds really good, man. What I mean, because I mean, obviously, with the economy that we're in now, it's very difficult for people to even think about doing anything outside of just trying to make ends meet. And why do you think? Because I see this a lot, like in especially like in our community, we have this more. So why do you think it's such so many adults struggle with this, like money management? What do you think that the core issue is? You think it's just ignorance and not being taught, or what?
I think it's all of the aforementioned. You don't know what you don't know. A lot of times with what's on TV, a lot of people are trying to keep up with appearances of how they see people on social media and on TV, and you can go broke trying to look like that. Like those people, they rent their stuff. I mean, not to be shady or
Yeah,
anything, but a
they
lot of
do.
them, they rent their nice clothes, and they rent the designer things that people see and desire to get, and a lot of folks don't know that. But you can go broke definitely trying to keep up with people in this day and age, and you really got to prioritize and be honest about how you're spending and what you're spending your money on, and what your real end objective is.
At what age do you think this should be taught? How old do you think?
I mean, from my experience, I could be biased when I say this, but I think this is things that they need to be teaching in school. We never got taught this stuff in grade school. I didn't start learning about like financial literacy and things like that until probably maybe 22 going on 23, and I'm 31 now. So if I feel like if I had a known a little bit more about financial literacy as a teenager, I would probably would have been further ahead, you know.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, especially like in the black community, like, I always say like where white people teach their kids like about having good credit and having um, you know, saving your money and budgeting. Unfortunately, we don't teach our kids that, and I think it's a lost art. A lot of these kids aren't learning basic, uh, basic whatever's like how to write a checkbook, how to do certain things. I remember when I was younger, my dad taught me how to write a checkbook because he said just in case you need to know, even though we're living in a world now where everything is digital, everything is just at the tip of our fingers with swiping a card or whatever. Yeah, I think more that does need to be taught, no matter in an early age. Um, with that being said, if I were to if I were to come to you and say what are the three most important skills that you think that financially that a person should have, what would you say?
I say one, how to make money, which is the easiest part because we all have jobs or like a job or multiple jobs. And I'll footnote that by saying there's nothing inherently wrong with having a second job if you need the extra income temporarily.
Yeah.
Secondly, would be how to keep money, like save it, or properly invest it. And the third part would probably be what to do with the money once it's obtained, because you might be able to keep the money for a momentary period of time, but if you start developing bad spending habits or improperly using it, that could run out.
Um, w- what do you think the biggest mistake that people make when they're trying to do this, like when creating a budget? What would you say is the maybe the biggest mistake?
I'm gonna say dishonesty, because a lot of times people are dishonest with what's a want and what's a need. They have a hard time sacrificing certain things, and for that reason, they don't come off of certain spending habits that they should. And sorry about the dog in the background. Um,
There you go.
they don't come off of certain habits that they should come off of, and that makes it hard to realistically see their goals. And sometimes, like, with my situation, there was a point a few years ago where I needed the extra income, and I got a second job. I wasn't there long, but I did what I had to do on my weekends when I had some downtime to get some extra money so that I could get ahead.
Where were you working at? Is that like was that at Dairy Queen or was that like earlier before I knew you?
Now, this was out. You've known me for probably about 10 years, but no, this is actually within the last 10 years. It's actually
Okay.
during yeah, it's actually during COVID. Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
yeah. So,
Where was that at?
I was working at Popeyes. Had my job for the state, and then, like, yeah, believe it or not,
Hey,
I was
hey,
working
it
at
is what it
Popeyes.
is.
Yep, and it was during the middle of the well, I actually worked there twice. The first time, it was in the middle of the chicken sandwich frenzy, where everybody was
Lord.
they were making
Oh
that big
boy.
huff and puff about that chicken sandwich fiasco, and then
Hey,
I left.
tell me you ain't seen nobody fighting, bro.
Huh?
Tell me you ain't seen nobody fighting, bro.
Yeah, of course.
Wow, you did.
Yeah. And I have no shame about it. I have no shame in tell people I've worked little fast food jobs on the side to get some extra cheese. And it hasn't been my first time working two jobs either. I've had to do it other times before as well. Sure enough.
Why you think some people have that like this? I guess well, like you mentioned earlier about keeping up with the status of because sometimes like you tell somebody what job you work at. I guess you think people might judge you or whatever because I think you talked about earlier about how people try to what's the phrase keeping up with the Joneses. And I guess that's probably I guess I answered my own question.
People want to keep up appearances for the gram.
Yeah,
That's what it
yeah,
is. They don't want to be perceived as somebody who fell off, or seemingly fell off. You know, you might have like a little business thing going on the side or whatever, and people think that you're rich, which is might not necessarily be true. And then,
Yeah, it's not.
and then someone finds out, takes a picture of you, or you make a post, and then they think you fell off because you had to work a second job to catch up. And
Remember when remember
that's
when they
that's a
caught Bow Wow
foolhardy
on
way
that
to
fake
think, you know.
plane? Remember when they caught Bow Wow on that plane?
Yeah.
But he wasn't in that plane. Oh, that was funny.
It was.
Man,
It was.
it was so weird. Like you see people like on social media. Like you ever just like look at somebody's page and you thinking to yourself, bro, how are you always going on vacation? Like I don't understand. I don't get it. It seems like every other month these people are like going on vacation, and I don't know. Maybe they're doing something. Maybe they getting their way paid for. I don't know.
Perhaps. I guess it really all depends on the industry too. I know a few people, because I used to do it myself. I used to book travel some years ago. Some of them they do what's called fam trips, and it's essentially where you're actually going on a trip, but for work. The trip itself is the work, and you have to actually be studious and take notes of different cultures, and um, you're actually, there as work. You're on the ship, you're taking notes about the different features of the ship, the surroundings, things like that. So it's the perks of a trip with some extra work to it, which I always thought was interesting. I didn't stay doing it, but yeah.
How come you quit?
I didn't have the time. At the time I was, and see, that's another thing. I hope if you all are watching this, learn to differentiate between diversification of income and shiny object syndrome. Back at then, when I was doing that, I had shiny object syndrome. I was doing many different hustles, I was joining many different programs, promoting many different companies, and I was stretching myself too thin, all in the name of supposedly diversification of income. Um,
Yeah,
you, you remember that you're human and you have so many hours a day to devote to yourself, to your health, and to the different things that are priorities to you. And the same can hold true for any business that you launch or any business that you join or whatever. I had
yeah,
to learn that.
that's true. So if somebody's never done this before, like if they came up to you, what do you recommend? Like, what do you recommend? How do they start? Like, if they've never done this before, like, how do you figure they go about it?
Get a piece of paper and a pen, or a stylus and a phone or whatever, and jot down the things that you're interested in and passionate about. Do a separate list and jot down a list of things that you're really, really skilled at. And the reason there's going to be two separate lists is because there might be something that you're really, really good at, but you're not passionate about, or something that you're passionate about, but you don't really have the know how to take it to the next level. And if you notice that on both lists, there's something that intertwines, you could do something with that. You could figure out a way to improve that particular niche or area that's in both of those lists, and you can devise a business plan based off of that.
Sounds good to me. Do you think do you think when somebody would go about this, do you think it's more about discipline or is it more about awareness?
I think it's a fine hodgepodge of both of them. You have to be disciplined in just about any facet of your life, especially when it comes to your goals. Um, you also have to be aware, because if you're aware of what your needs are, what other people's needs are, and what solutions that you can bring to the table, um, you can make some fine strides in whatever your goal is, and really see some real success.
Now, what if there's somebody that doesn't have the job, well, not say doesn't have a job, but they have a job and the money's not really that steady. Like they're not making a lot, or they don't work a lot of hours a week. How would you navigate that?
All right. Well, in the situation like that, they probably have to slow down just a hair. I would never tell anybody to jump out on faith with entrepreneurship or business ownership until you have a steady flow of income. Now, I'm not saying that to sound contrarian, but some business owners will say otherwise. I'm not one of those people. I'm gonna keep it a buck 100 because you still have to make sure your personal bills are paid when you have a business.
Yeah,
So you need to make sure that you're having some steady stream, and in the meantime, until you can actually do that, apply for better jobs, apply for state jobs with benefits. um Grow your network and attend career fairs so that you can actually get an established career, because it's hard to it's I'm not saying it's impossible. It's very, very, very hard to launch a business or anything like that on a retail or fast food income. And I hate that it's like that, but it's the truth.
yeah. At what point did you become so interested? Like, is this something that happened to you personally, or you kind of took a liking to it and you stuck with it?
I'll say this: about 10 years ago, well, really longer than that, about 13 years ago, I was working. My first job was at Sonic. I worked there for about 2.5 years, and I quit like January of 2016 in hopes that I was going to land this tutoring position, because most of you all, if you all know me, know I used to actually tutor in math a very long time ago. Still really good at it, but I just don't have the time for it anymore. Anyway, I thought I was going to land this hourly tutoring position, and it fell through. And so I was without a job for a long time. And then in the interim, I joined this company. I think I might have told you about it, or you told me about it some years back, but it was an insurance company. I'm not sure if I can say the name for legal
Yeah,
reasons, but I
I
joined
think I know
and
what
I
you're
got,
talking about. Yeah,
yeah, red, white, and blue
yeah,
circles.
yeah.
Yeah. I
Oh,
joined,
okay, yeah.
yeah, uh-huh. I joined back then in 2016. Got my insurance license, and it just kind of opened my eyes to a different way of thinking, because I was never used to marketing or sales or business at all. And everybody has their opinions about the company or whatever, but it was a good thing for me, even though I didn't really generate any sales hardly. It was a good thing for me because I recognized that there was something else outside of a 9 to 5 job. And once I got my life insurance license, I started taking the other classes. And those were the classes that started talking about stocks and bonds and securities. And once I learned about that, about like there was an actual way to make money without having to pitch people, I was like, okay, so there is something else outside of 9 to 5 and outside of pitching people. Okay. But I didn't stay with the company. But I did take what I learned from the company, and I started to start my own little portfolio, a little small trading portfolio, and um I started to immerse myself in different ways that people are making money, and I'm kind of late to the game. And once I mixed that with what I knew about business, it was over with.
Man, I tried to. I something. I guess I don't know if something like that was for me because I somebody had told me about it and I was trying to like. I listen. I paid the money and everything, the little fee that they had. I forgot what the fee was for, and I
IBA,
try. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Yep, I had to pay mine too, man. I sure did. And that
Yeah, I
little,
didn't. I never got that money back either. Anyway, I mean, that's another whole discussion. But yeah, this guy he hit me up because it was somebody throughout a mutual friend who I know. Actually, Malik,
hmm
one of his family members was doing it. She told me about it, and I'm like, okay. Met with the guy. It sounded interesting, but I didn't. I don't know, because I tried to pitch people, people that I knew, but everybody kind of it's a very tricky industry because it's not something you could just like call somebody up on the phone and just be like, "Hey, do you need this?" No, 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 I don't. Okay, yeah, I do. And unfortunately, he made it seem like it was that easy, and it's really not. So
Yeah.
after a while, I'm like, yeah, this ain't for me.
That kind of is similar to my experience. And that's kind of why I left the whole, I guess, network marketing, multi-level marketing industry altogether. I got sick of the pitching DMs type
Yeah,
situation. Like I feel like there needs to be a way for people to be able to get leads so that they're not pitching DMs. Because now, if you do that stuff on Facebook Messenger, you will get flagged. So
yeah.
I'm not sure if they're aware of this, but if you keep doing those MLM pitches in people's DM, you will get flagged as a spammer. And Facebook might
Hey,
block
you
your
might get
account for that.
blocked. I'm about to
Yeah.
say you might get blocked.
And they have it now. Like, people don't even have to report it as spam if you use certain verbiage in those, like a certain pitchy verbiage, your account will get marked. So
Certain keywords, yeah, you're gonna end up in
yeah,
Facebook jail.
for facts. I'm not sure if they're hip to that, but if any of them are listening, hey, y'all might want to take note. You can't be using them. You can't be using them pitches from 2015. That stuff don't work in 2026, Chief.
It sure don't, bro. Shoot,
No
it
siree.
gained almost didn't work in 2015. Shoot,
Look, you hear me? But yeah, man, I didn't
shoot.
I didn't like the whole making a list type situation. I feel
I didn't
like
like that either. I hated that.
I did not like that at all. I feel like that's a very antiquated way to do things. Now, it probably worked in the 80s and 90s, but it's not my
Very
thing. And then
archaic.
with me personally, um, I didn't want to pitch. I wasn't really going for the whole life insurance thing. I got it for myself. I did eventually write my own policy out, and I did a successful one for a coworker some years back. But my biggest thing was them security license commissions. That's where the real money is, rollovers and things like that. But I don't know. I kind of wish I had stuck it out, because like you can rolling over IRAs and things like that. Yeah, that's some
Yeah,
serious money because you get paid off the
yeah.
fees. But it's very,
Oh
very
wow,
hard to,
okay.
yeah, it's very hard to get that license. You have to pass several of those Series 6 and 26 tests and all that. Uh, I don't know, but it was other things coming through too, so I didn't really stick with it. But it's a good company. I can't say that
Yeah,
aside from those things.
yeah, that's true. Um, credit. Let's talk about credit, man. What do you think about credit scores? Like, what do you think is one myth about credit scores that needs to kind of go away? What would you say in your estimation?
There's plenty myths, but I'll pick one. That is, like, people who say that it's not that important. Um, Very fallacious argument. Your credit score is very important because it affects the bigger decisions in life, like your house buying and your car buying. Um, Nobody's gonna want to lend to somebody who has a history of not being able to pay their bills. And so your score is how they measure your ability to pay bills. So it's very important that you try to get it to at least a good or excellent standing.
Um, do you think, or wasn't that not asked that, but when does it become dangerous when it comes to being strategic? Like, what's kind of the hold on, shit. What am I trying to say? Oh no, okay. When does it become strategic versus being dangerous? Like, what's the balance in that?
You mean as far as getting credit?
Yeah, like when it comes to having debt and having credit, like when being strategic, like when does it become kind of dangerous a little bit?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm gonna say it's dangerous when you're obtaining credit for things that are silly. Like, I wouldn't take out unless I'm filthy rich or whatever, but most people aren't. I wouldn't take out a $100,000 loan or even a $10,000 loan so that I can go to Caicos, Turks and Caicos for a vacation. But um, there's nothing inherently wrong with responsible debt, and responsible debt could be used on things that are um that can make you money. Like if you were to take it out for, let's say, a patent, like you wanted to patent your idea or trademark something. Um, if you already owned a business, but you were kind of low and you need to pay your staff, you can use your business credit for that. So it's about the reason behind it. Like I understand self care, but I don't condone taking out high amounts of credit for a vacation. You know.
Yeah, that's true. Um, People in our age group, you know, it's either you have it or you don't when it comes to credit cards. Would you people in either our age group or a little younger, would you advise them to avoid them entirely or just learn to use them wisely?
Um, I would say that's case by case basis. Some people have poor spending habits, some don't. If you don't, you could start with a secured line of credit because creditors and lenders, they'll look at that as you're a beginner and you have a way to secure the credit that they're giving you. Um, I would say if you don't, then you probably want to work on your spending habits first before getting one. But there's nothing inherently wrong in general with credit cards because it's how you build credit history, and your credit history helps boost your score.
How does that credit impact like long-term wealth building?
Um, a lot, because a lot of people don't know this, but your established business owners, even the big ones, they love to use and leverage other people's money to make them more money. They do it all the time. I'm not sure if people know this, but when you take out, like when these big businesses take out loans from the bank, did you know that those loans are collateralized by tax dollars? Yes. Um, so I mean, that kind of leads to, like, it's a different topic of conversation, but how a lot of people were crying about food stamps and welfare, and how they don't want their tax dollars funding the poor people stuff. Well, guess what? The poor people, their tax dollars funds the business loans that you use. They help
Yeah,
collateralize the banks, and the
yeah,
banks give you your loans. So it's an interchange. It's not a one sided thing. But in any
yeah.
case, not to go off on a tangent,
No, you good.
not to
You
go
good.
off on a
Hey,
tangent,
what's on your heart? Come on, man.
but yeah, because once I get started, I ain't gonna stop. But anyway,
Right.
yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. But anyway,
That's a whole
um,
nother conversation.
yes, sir, yes, sir. But anyway, yeah, they're able to leverage the business loan for something that can make them more money. And there aren't really that many stipulations in place for them to do it. And that's kind of a good thing, but it's a bad thing too, because if a big business can leverage enough business credit from a bank, they can buy anything. That includes, systems, automated systems that can even replace their own employees. And then, you get high unemployment funded by tax dollars. But in any case, you know, it could be a good thing for an up and coming entrepreneur or business owner who just needs a little extra help, like myself. Who just needs the capital to see a project through. So it has so many different perks, and believe it or not, even well established companies use credit because it's available and they have a reputation to pay it back. So you develop that reputation to pay it back, you can definitely leverage it, especially if, it's a rough season for you.
What would be your advice to somebody who's just starting off? is your interest rate going to be very high? Because you don't have a lot of credit history. Like, how do you start that? How do you navigate that? Like, if you
But
just want to
yeah,
get a credit card.
um, a lot of times the interest rate is, I guess, somewhat correlated to your score. There's no credit, then you have bad credit, and then you have good credit. If you don't have any credit, like with me, when I first started with credit, I financed a washing machine from a place called Cowboy Maloney that we have here in the metro area. I was kind of ticked off about it because it was $3,000 worth of appliances, and I wound up paying close to 7,200 over a 2 year span. Yeah, yeah. But I didn't have any
They
credit
got
history.
you.
They got me, but they won't make a fool of me again. I was young. I was 15. Well, I was older than 15. I was probably like 18 or 19. But in any case, they got your boy. And
Mm.
you just want to be careful when you're applying for certain loans. I would say if you're just starting off, get you a secured credit card.
All right.
I'm a
I might be
I'm
asking
a
for
big fan
myself.
of Navy Federal Credit Union, especially if you have family members who are military. You know,
Yeah.
they do really good, in my opinion.
I was trying to, because I got Chime, and I was trying to because they had that credit builder card, and I have one, but man, it's so slow. And I
Yeah,
have it connected with some other companies like to pay bills and stuff, but dude, it's so slow. Oh my goodness, man! Dude, like to build everything back up, and I checked my credit score recently. And I'm like, oh my goodness, never mind.
yeah.
Why?
And I'll go ahead.
I'll go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, when you're building your credit, always, check your Credit Karma or your Experian app for, you want to avoid late payments as much as possible, because those will very much so damage your score. And if you have lingering collections or repossessions, those things will cause a lot of harm to your score as well. Um, some of them take a very long time to come off. So you want to make sure that you avoid them at all costs. Even if you have to set alarms to pay bills, do what you got to do, because once that's on there, it's tough to come off for many reasons.
Why do you think so many people delay when it comes to investing money into themselves? Like whether it's getting credit cards and then or start a business or budgeting. Why do you think there's such a delay in people doing it?
I just think people have an idle mindset. They, I guess they figure, hey, it won't hurt if I put it off a little longer. It's the whole procrastination type mindset. Um, the I'll do it later mentality. And that's why I say sometimes that mentality is worse than failing, because you start to kind of overestimate just how much time that you have. And I think that's
So
where people are right now.
what would you say is the biggest difference between saving and investing?
Um, I mean, you save your money in a bank. Let's say you save your money in a bank, it probably will just sit there. But like, say you want to save for a down payment on a house, and you put away $100 every month, or $500 every month, or whatever. If you got that kind of money, um, by the time you're done saving for it, the cost of the house increased. So that means your down payment has also increased, because you have to pay a percentage of the amount of the face amount of the house. So
Yeah.
saving has failed you, and your banks are laughing in your face, because they're earning. Yeah, they really are, because see, they're earning off of your money, and they're giving you table scraps.
This is building interest in your account.
Yeah, it's building very, very small interest. Now they're able to leverage people's money in the bank. They're investing it and whatever, but you only get a small little tidbit of what they're earning off of it, and it's not enough to make a difference. Whereas if you're investing, you do have, I have to admit, in some cases, depending on the economy, you do have years where you could be at a net loss or whatever, but you also have years where you could be in profit, and you could actually see a substantial amount that you wouldn't see otherwise. Now I will say some banks have what's called CDs, and you get a little bit more for your money. Those are good too. But I think a lot of them you kind of have to have a good hefty amount saved up. You have to have like a good bit of money if you're going to put money in a CD, a certificate of deposit. So you can't just throw $75 up in there and be like you have to throw something with a comma in it.
A couple more zeros behind it.
Yeah, a few more zeros. Yeah, this ain't for no broke folk.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I don't think I should be doing that then. Oh,
Look, with what I got going on, probably not me either.
shit. What is your business like? I'm sorry. What is your business again?
What I got going on is it's called Reclaim Holdings LLC, and I'm developing a tech. Now, my intentions are to get the tech patented, and I'm going to create a software that different traders and institutions can use. But I don't want to run it myself. I would rather a bigger, more established company run it. So um, I'm looking to develop it, simulate it, and eventually sell it for royalties. I don't want to be a business owner forever. I just want the financial component of it. So that's why I elected to develop the business, but with an exit strategy.
Um, what was I gonna say next? Let's go. Let's kind of shift gears into the emotional aspect of it when it comes, and also your mindset. I want to know how do emotions affect your influence on decisions?
A lot. Um, I'm not gonna lie. Like I have my bad days. Some days I'm not driven and I'm not as um boosted about my ambitions and about what I'm gonna do for the day or how productive I'm gonna be. So it does have a big impact to that.
Why do you think people sabotage their own financial progress?
It is a lot of reasons why people might do that. They might have been told so many times what they could and couldn't do, and they started accepting and believing those limiting beliefs, and they made it their truth, and they shouldn't have. And so, they're kind of stuck with that because somebody in some in their past or whatever told them that they might not ever be anything, and they accepted that internally, even though they might not have outwardly showed it. They kind of accepted that, and um, you know, from there.
I was going to go to my follow up question about how someone's upbringing can affect their relationship with money, but you basically just answered it. Um, when it comes to like having credit and investing your money and stuff like that, and having, I don't wait, I know if you want to say generational wealth, just like wealth, period. Like, what is the mindset that you need to have? Do you think the biggest out of all of them?
Um, you really kind of have to view money as a tool. Um, you know,
Yeah.
like me, I'm not what they call like I want to get more money. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I do want to get more money, but I'm not one to chase after it forever. I want if I had it my way right now, you give me $1 billion, I'll put it in a special account, an interest bearing account, and live off the interest. I'm not going to find a way to make another billion. That's just not the way I'm built. I want my time more than I want my money. And so,
Yeah.
I, a lot of people say time is money. I think time is more important. The time that you can spend with your family, the time that you can spend with your friends, and the time you can spend bettering your health, and the more important things in your life, your spiritual side of things too. Um, you know, you only get so many years of life. You don't want to give it all away to the hustle. I don't support that.
Yeah, I agree. So many people They put all their heart and soul into getting to a certain point, and then they look back, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years from now, and they think about the time that was wasted because you've missed out on so much. You missed out on gatherings. You missed out on weddings and maybe funerals. What's the phrase? It's just paper, and then you end up regretting certain decisions that you make, and it's just a whole big mess. But why do you think? As we've been talking about this for a while now, why do you think this is not taught like more in schools? Do you think it's just a why? Why? I mean, why? I don't know.
Um, I feel like there are certain powers. I'm not trying to get into conspiracy. I feel like there are certain powers in people who seem to benefit from it not being talked about.
Yeah.
There are entities that profit from ignorance. And so if people start talking about this too often, it disrupts their process. It disrupts what they've got going on. They're trying to keep, people on the wheel, on the hamster wheel. And they want to make sure that there's always going to be somebody who's, n- uh, thinking within the box and not outside the box, basically.
Where were we? So let's bring this back to we were talking about financial literacy. Let's bring to like a modern outlook. We know that obviously certain things that just aren't taught, and for whatever reason are denied, and if it affects it affects people like you and me who are Gen Z and up, or if you're a millennial, because we came into an era of the world where um just as we were starting to kind of live life and pay bills, a pandemic happened. Just as we were kind of getting our early to mid 20s, COVID happened, and it really screwed everything up as far as getting jobs and how people hire and the hiring process and things like that. Well, what would you say is the biggest financial challenge right now with somebody that's maybe in my age or a little older, or maybe a little younger?
The biggest financial challenge, and I'm gonna just go ahead and call a spade, but I'm gonna say the lies that we were told. We were told that we would be paid more from our jobs as a youth. Like, we say, we go to college or, get you a job or whatever. And it's like, we believed everything that we were told. Some of us went to college, got the degree, and now we're still struggling. So now we feel
Yeah.
kind of deceived, and outraged. And then to make matters worse, they call us crazy for being outraged. So I feel like, if jobs actually paid fairer, then we could contribute more. Like, some of us probably would be more apt to start a business or start a side hustle, or do something that is business related that could contribute more to society. But we don't have much to work with the economy and
Yeah,
everything. We don't have very much to work with, and it's unfortunate.
that whole thing about the previous generation is so real, because we talked about a lot about how, like, why aren't you doing this? Why, when I was your age, I had a house and a job and two. Ma'am, sir, do you see what the cost of eggs are like? Do you
Mhm.
see how expensive food is? Do you see how expensive rent? I don't know what it's like, in Mississippi, but in Florida, the average income for rent, on the income, but the going rate for rent is about, at last glance, about 16 to 1700 a month,
Mhm.
and that's just for a 2-bedroom. Now that's not saying like a one bedroom apartment or a studio. You're still looking at around 12, 1,300 bucks a month, and that's not including light bill, water bill, possibly. That's not including if you have a pet. You know, homeowners insurance, which is a lot of these companies and these rental properties are almost making that mandatory. A lot of these things are not as easy as it used to be for the previous generation. Like you said, they call us crazy for not doing certain things and not having certain things. Man, what's your take?
The math ain't mathing. That's my take. You know, a lot of the places, yeah, a lot of the places they want you to make 3 or 4 times the rent every month, but ain't no job paying for that hardly. And then I'll go one further, and this is probably a interesting way to view it. The jobs that are paying it are scarce. A lot of people don't qualify for those jobs. You have to have 10 degrees to get jobs like that.
Yep.
So it's the whole configuration of the system with the rental prices and the qualifications for you know being able to afford them is flawed. It's
Yeah.
flawed. The whole system, the whole kit and caboodle is flawed.
When we were talking about this, I looked some up on Google. And I think you've seen this picture circulating around online about the cost of living in 1965. So let me read this off real quick. The going rate for a brand new house back then, 13,000, $13,600. That's for a new house. The average income back then was 6,000 per year, $6,469 per year. If you wanted a new car, $2,000. Average rent price, $118 a month. Tuition to a Harvard University, 1,700 per year, 1,760 per year. The average price of a movie ticket, $1.25 each. Gas was 31 cents per gallon. A postage stamp was 5 cents each. Food, 55 cents for a 5-pound bag of sugar. Milk was $1 per gallon, $1.05 per gallon, and ground coffee was 87% per pound. Bacon was 70 cents per pound. Eggs were 35 cents per dozen. Fresh ground hamburger was 42 cents per pound. Fresh baked bread was 21 cents per loaf. That's insane.
And
That's
that's the
insane.
thing too. Like a lot of people, when you start presenting numbers, their cognitive dissonance starts flaring up because now they have to acknowledge that something's wrong, but they don't want to outwardly admit it because then they have to admit there's a problem. Now I'm gonna go ahead since I have my calculator pulled up. I think you said the house was $16,000 a year or something like that.
You said for the new house?
Yeah.
So no, for buying a new house, it was $13,000.
Okay, 13,000, not 16. Okay, and then you said the average person was making what about 6,400 a year or something like that. You said.
Yeah, so the average income for 1965 was $6,469.
All right, so if I take the $13,000 house and I divide it by 6,469, I get about a 2-to-1 ratio, right? So I'm curious. Let me see what the average home is today. Curious. Average home price 2026. Maybe I need to choose Google because Bing is giving me some issues. I don't know why I'm on Bing to begin with.
You on Bing?
I don't know why it defaulted to Bing. We're
Man,
gonna try
I
Google
ain't know
Chrome.
Bing was still around.
Look, I didn't know it was around until I logged in just a bit ago. Okay, it says 414.9K. That's the average single family home price in the US is a 404. I'm gonna just go ahead and say $415,000. All right. So we had the 2-to-1 ratio with a year, like a house and yearly income, right? So
Yeah.
if it's gonna be the same, then that means the average income is supposed to be something like close to $208,000 because that's half of 415, right? About 208, maybe
You would
207.
think.
All right, so let's see what
You
it
would
is.
think.
Let's see what it is. Average salary in 2025 US. Bruh, this
What's the
thing
average
says
salary?
it says $63,000. No cap. The Bureau. Oh yeah, mind you. So just in case somebody watches this, a Bureau of Labor Statistics, not this ain't coming from Darryl.com or Trevor.com. This is coming straight from the 2025 Bureau of Labor Statistics, y'all.
This ain't
It's
this ain't
not
made
it's
of
not
monkeycrap.com.
$207,000 a year. That's not the average income. The average income is 63,000. That's almost a third of what it's supposed to be. So my whole thing is this: either they triple that 63,000, or we need to wind that $415,000 down by 2/3 in order for things to
What's
be where it's supposed to be.
what I'm gonna look something up too. What's the average? I did not know that. That's interesting. So, okay. This is a person earning 100,000 a year, which is divided by 8,000 a month, generally considered to be in the upper middle class range in the US. This income puts them in the median individual income, with roughly 18% of Americans earning over 100,000 annually. Figure that rises to 25% for those aged 35 through 44. So that's only what, 18% of Americans out of how
Then
many people
we
in the
have to
world?
factor in how many of those people live in high income states like Cali and New York. Probably a good bit of
Yeah.
them because I have my whole degree and I'm making 58K.
Yeah, it does say that here too. It says after taxes, 100K salary often results in roughly about 70 to 75K annually, or about 2,500 to 2,800 biweekly, depending on state income tax. And like you just said, in high cost areas like California, 100K can feel like most middle class income, while in lower cost areas like Texas or Tennessee, it offers greater purchasing power. It says as of 2025, about 25% of the men earning, about 25% of working men earn 100K compared to 12% of women. High earners at this level often hold bachelor's or master's degrees, 38 and 49% respectively. So, are you telling me the average income for the United States of America is 63,000? And how much is the average for you said a new house?
The 900, but I rounded it by $100. I mean, it's not really consequential, but $414,900 is what it said.
Man, get out of my face.
And they're playing in our face. That's what it is.
Broadway play.
Basically. Hmm.
Man,
And see,
what
then
year
when
were
you,
you
but
born?
then, and then get this, when you show them when you show them the statistics from, of course, neutral parties, of course, it's suddenly propaganda to them. So
You just lazy. We're just lazy, you know.
we're
That's all it
lazy.
is.
Yeah,
We don't know how to work. You know, Gen
basically.
Z is just lazy.
We're
Millennials, you know,
we're
y'all
quote
just so
unquote
lazy.
snowflakes. They call us snowflakes. We complain too much.
Yeah, we're soft. All we do is complain. You know, just work harder. Just work
Hmm.
harder, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Look, I'm gonna tell you something. Numbers don't lie. Now
at
I can
all.
get on here. I can be biased. I can say what I want, but the numbers are not lying. Okay, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Let me look something else up. What year were you born?
1994. It's the best year of the 90s.
Some good albums came out that year.
Yes, sir.
So, let's see here. Images. So we're comparing this with a 20-year margin, a 20-year span. Median household income was 68,000, whereas a new economy car was 14,000. Average new car was 37,000. Average monthly rent for every $100 and nine. What was it? Yes. Okay, so that is right. It was still about $200 a month for rent in 1994. Median home sale price 272,000. Bachelor's degree holders, it's only 25% in men and 22% in women. Average annual college tuition was 6,000. Private tuition was 24,000. Average student loan debt 22K. Only 60% of adults who had been married by that time, and the average age of their first childbirth was 24. Now, if you compare that to, let's look at the price of a year later in 95. This is only a year later. If we compare this with last year, a new house went for an average of $113,100. Average income was $35,900. New car was $15,000. Average rent $550 per month. Tuition to Harvard University $130. A movie ticket was $4.35. Gasoline was $1.12
I'm still
per
lost the movie
gallon.
ticket.
Dude, bro, $4 won't even get you in the door nowadays. First class postage stamp was 32 cents. Oh, it says food. Sugar was $1.25 per 5 pounds. Milk was $2.55 per gallon. Coffee was $4 per pound. Bacon was $2 per pound. Eggs were 87 cents per dozen. Ground beef was $1.35 per pound. And fresh baked bread was $1.15 per loaf.
Bro, I just got some ground beef. 1 pound of it was $7.50. Mind you, I'm in the
Man,
poorest state in the nation.
I got some like ground beef like to make chili and stuff, bro. It's like $14 at Walmart. That's 3 pounds.
That made no sense,
14,
man.
bro.
Look, that's why
Like I
we ain't
went to
barbecue this year. That's why we didn't barbecue.
this.
Because that's the thing,
Hey,
dog.
I
If I
wouldn't
barbecue,
either.
I'm gonna have burgers, but we gonna need
Yeah.
the big pack. The big pack was running close to $45.
For how many pounds?
I think the largest one isn't the larger one, what, like 10 pounds or something like that, or bigger. Like it's the really
something
big.
like 10 pounds. Yeah.
hmm 45, sir. I can tell you who ain't buying that. Income tax
Listen,
here. I still ain't buying it.
he said income tax.
No, sir.
Well, that cow better have all type of wisdom and knowledge of the universe for $45. Shoot. I don't know what type of cows y'all killing, bro. Oh man. But
Must be a
it's
Gucci
just
burger.
yeah. Shoot.
Versace.
Fendi. Shoot. Bro, what type of
Oh.
cows y'all killing? Something like 40, man.
Mm-mm.
The wings are like, I think the wings are like 14 bucks. I get Walmart right now for like just one pack of wings. I'm just like,
Man, I got some them little frozen steak fajitas that you get from the freezer section. Them things was 20 bucks for a whole bag, man.
what?
Yes, sir. $20. Well, 1974, but you know, with tax, that's about close to $20.
Yeah, yeah. Shoot. Oh man. Yeah,
I had
man.
half the mind to scan it as something cheap and call it a day, but I'm gonna be an honest gent. I'm not gonna be a dishonest person.
But yeah, we're the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Not. Man. That part of the let's move on to something else. It's gonna make me mad. You had on here jotting down ideas and protecting your ideas. What did you mean? What was that about?
That part right there, I was just gonna talk about like for those people out there who are already like really creative and have brainstormed about, you know, what they want to do, what their next move is. It's very important that y'all pay close attention to this. There are lots and lots of rich people out there who are not creative at all. And they're idly waiting for somebody who is creative to come up with something so that they can steal it. Patent your ideas, copyright your ideas, trademark your ideas. Those are very important. And when it comes to like if you're an artist, if you do music, if you do literature, if you do any of those things, protect yourself all the time. Protect your work. Okay. Pay that extra amount to, you know, to get it trademarked or whatever. Write that off on your taxes. It's a business expense if you know you can do that. But do it. Because I'm gonna say this: if you're entrepreneurial minded, your creativity and your idea and your ability to create out ideas out the blue is a special gift that everybody don't got. So protect your ideas at all time because somebody can run off with your idea and um they can have all kinds of defenses to protect them if you decide to sue if you're not, you know, patenting or copywriting or trademarking your stuff. That's the route I'm trying to take too because my business isn't a typical business. I have an exit strategy. I don't want to be a business owner forever, but I would like for a bigger company to take my idea to the next level. But you know, I want to be compensated for it. I want to be fairly compensated for my ideas and for my software as well. So that's why I'm not really too specific about what I got going on because I don't want anybody um, coming off with it, you know, unless they
Yeah.
paid the fee.
Yeah. That's a very real thing. People, you know, like you said, people be pocket not only pocket watching, people just be watching you period from the shadows and next thing you know, like, hey, I was gonna do that. You know, there's always somebody watching,
Mhm.
waiting to capitalize off of whatever you got going on. It's a
Mhm.
shame with the world we live in.
Yeah, and you know what? To be honest, it's not just, your Facebook friends. You gotta be smart. Like, when even, like, if you ever watch Shark Tank or anything like that, um, you wanna be you just wanna be on it because, it could be somebody with millions and billions of dollars, who are looking to make another million or billion off of an idea from that poor guy from Orlando or from Jackson. So, you want to protect your stuff at all times and make sure that you're fairly compensated because
Yeah,
it's easy for them to try to shortchange you for your work.
yeah, most definitely, man. Um, discuss our issues with social media and how it affects how we see the world. Since the last election, there's been a lot of, not to get too political, obviously, but it's become very divisive. Uh, this particular regime, for obvious reasons, we aren't going to get into everything, but we all know why. And unfortunately, it has fostered some very harmful and divisive talking points, and some of that rhetoric, well, most of that rhetoric is quite seen on social media. Um, what would you say, in your estimation, is some of the biggest issues, not just with that, but just in general with social media and how people use it, and how has it affected how you see the world?
To answer the first part of the question, with what's going on, um, ignorance has always been um, around, but now it's as if ignorant people are more comfortable being ignorant. If you get my drift.
Yeah,
To them, they can say off the wall, unsubstantiated things, and they don't feel any reservations or anything about it. They just go off the wall and say, what they want, and it doesn't
yeah.
have to necessarily be valid, true, or make sense. And what I would say about that, what makes it so bad is that other like-minded people like them is kind of like a contagion where it just everybody else starts also saying off the wall, unsubstantiated mess. Mm. Now they all look silly. You know what I'm saying? So,
Do you think that, like, and then I've always wondered this, and it's a something that I've always wrestled with in my mind. Have stupid people always been there, and social media just given them a voice, or has social media made people dumber?
both. I think both things are true.
Both.
I think social media has taken away the intellectual capacity, and they've always been there, but I think it's like I don't know. It's like they're bold about it now.
Yeah,
It's like pick a struggle. I mean, if you're gonna be bold about something, be bold about something good.
yeah.
But you bold about your nonsense. Come on now. But
You can't be like stupid and then be cocky about it. You got to pick one.
you get
You
my
can't-
point. You get my point. Like, be cocky about something good, not something bad.
right? Yeah, yeah, exactly. Especially when things are just right in your face.
Hmm.
You know what stuff we used to talk about.
Hmm. Oh yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you've seen what I posted on Instagram a few days ago, where I said tolerance will reach such a level that intelligent people will be banned from thinking so as not to offend the imbeciles. Oh, I love that
Basically.
quote so much.
Yeah,
Oof.
because it's applicable. And a certain audience likes the poorly educated. So, that's not right about that's right up,
Yeah.
right up on schedule.
Yeah, You know, we ain't
Hmm.
gotta we know.
Oh yeah.
I was seeing the reaction of people when this whole the government shutdown first happened, and seeing the reactions of people saying, "Oh no, now you got to go get a real job," huh? As if there's not people on disability that are veterans, as if there's not older people who cannot work for themselves, who cannot provide certain income on their own, who rely on that money. You know, my mom she got food stamps, she has EBT. And I told her that, it's a good thing that we weren't totally relying on it like some people. Some people like really, really reliant on stuff like that. And then you got to get on social media and see, yeah, like you mentioned earlier about, well, my tax dollars are going to here, my tax dollars are going. Your tax dollars are also going to roads that never get fixed either. So let's have that conversation.
Hmm.
What
Or
you talking about?
overseas.
Yeah,
Or overseas.
to fund to fund. Ooh, all right, let me leave it alone.
And that's where that phrase comes from, selective outrage.
Yeah,
Selective outrage. They cherry pick what they want to be outraged about.
most definitely.
Please be consistent. Be consistent. If you're gonna be outraged about this, this, and this, be outraged about this big old heaping pile over here. You know?
And it's not like because certain things like are not. I can see how if I look at a situation and I can see both sides to an argument, and I can say, okay, I can see why somebody's saying that, or somebody has that mindset or think the way that they do. But there are certain situations where you examine it, you're like, no, what are you talking? Like, what are you doing? Like, it's right
Right.
there. Like, what are you? It's like, what are we talking about? Like it's
Right.
done. You know. But yeah, I think, and speaking of speaking of that, it kind of bleeds into this next topic when we talk about how words have consequences. Um, and I gave the examples of Charlie Kirk and Dr. Umar and Kevin Samuels. Do I listen? Do I think that? Do I think that well, not Kirk, but do I think Dr. Umar's and his rants and stuff like that, and Kevin Samuels and things that he was? Do I think that they're funny? Yeah. Now, would I take something like that seriously? Of course not. But I think that with social media and when you have certain influencers, quote unquote influencers, they have fostered this community of like-minded idiots, like-minded imbeciles who are this, I call it a hive mindset. You know what I'm saying? And they've, they have fostered this, like this kind of, this groupthink. So I think that's the buzzword now is groupthink, that they spew this harmful rhetoric and this very divisive rhetoric, and it's not people feed way too much into it. There's nothing wrong with, because like I said, I'm entertained by certain things. Yeah, like it's social media, you have to have some kind of form of entertaining yourselves. But I think a big issue we see now is people feeding way too much into these so-called influencers who behind the camera are not who they seem to be. What's your take on that?
I think failure to think independently is very dangerous. And I feel like when people start adopting, like you say, the what's the word, groupthink,
Yeah,
is really, really eating away at our intellect and our reasoning ability as human beings, because we're supposed to be able to think independently, with nobody pulling our strings, telling us what to say or what to think. Um, and when we when people, I'm not gonna say we, but when people decide that they want to go and let someone be the spokesperson for their decisions, how to think, how to dress, how to feel, um, you are forfeiting part of your humanity
Yeah.
because the ability to think for yourself is part of being human. It's what separates us from the animals.
Yeah.
And so, and, you know, it just makes you wonder, like, if people will be able to actually think independently when it really matters.
Yeah. You know what? I think about what Joker said in The Dark Knight. He said these civilized people, they'll eat each other. And I'm like, you know what? He has a point. 'Cause you look at how people react to certain things, and when we see tragedies happen, like you talk about earlier, you talked about consistency. You know, this been a topic of discussion for the past 10 to 15 years about gun control. And we want to talk about gun control, and we want to talk about how we fix it when there's somebody on your side of the aisle that it happens to. But when you see kids being slaughtered and when you see kids dying, it's just kind of swept under the rug. Now, obviously, we know the end goal in all this. You know, we know the in the future this will all be taken care of, but it's just really eye opening to see the inconsistencies as you mentioned.
Yeah, and when you see that inconsistency, it makes you question the genuineness of the person because it's like compassion for me, but not for thee. You know?
Yeah, 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 man. It's crazy out here. You kind of look. I've there's so many times where I've looked at my phone and I look at people and I look at the thoughts and the mindset that these people have, and I'm like, yeah, nah. It's almost like you almost feel like you almost feel like you're the crazy one for thinking the way you do.
Mhm.
I struggle with that because it's like, wait, am I the one thinking weird? Am I the problem? You know? But yeah. Um. Any final thoughts before we move on?
No, that's about it.
Yeah. Same. Before we get out of here, I added this question kind of late in the game because it's something I've always thought about, and we see how with generational trauma and how much it can affect your mind. We talk about that. There's that word again, mindset. Um, how do you think now? How can it affect us? You know, with the way we live life, and what can be done to kind of stop it, or will it ever be stopped?
Generational wealth to me is a big monster because you know it encompasses a lot because like it can even encompass like epigenetics, like passed down trauma, emotional and mental issues and things like that. So it's a type of monster that you have to handle slow but steady, but you know still moving. And you have to kind of develop a solution based mindset, and it can kind of also involve that you know work with somebody, maybe you know seek therapy or just get help and not be afraid of seeking help from other people. And I think that can be hard in and of itself because with us when we're trying to accomplish something or do something different than our parents and grandparents, social media and the world itself sometimes make people feel like their feats and their accomplishments aren't that good because they sought help. And that's a
Yeah,
very fallacious way to view things. There's nothing wrong with, you know, having doors opened for you or, you know, a way paved for you. It's what you do with those open doors and those paved ways.
I feel like I was one of the few people when Kanye said what he said about slavery being a choice. I feel like I was one of the few people that actually underneath Kanye just being Kanye, I understood the meaning of what he was trying to say. Because there's so much that we suffer from, unfortunately, due to having that sort of a crab in the bucket mentality, like you talked about nepotism. Nepotism goes on in the corporate world all the time, in the workforce all the time. But I don't know what it is. It seems like in our community and in other communities, it's almost frowned upon. It's almost like it's a bad thing, and I think that a lot of trauma that a lot of the trauma is a contributing factor to that. I don't know what your opinion on that is, but yeah, that's kind of my thing on it.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Definitely.
Um, how much do you think it does it have to do with like identity and self worth?
A lot. But it is fair to say that sometimes if you're a person or you know people who have had mental health issues, um, self worth is a big issue, and I do feel like sometimes people their gauge of their self worth can be affected by a lot of factors, just life in general, and sometimes them not wanting to get the help or thinking that they've managed fine so far, and so they don't really need the help that they actually need, and they figure as though they've survived this long in their dysfunction that, hey, I can continue surviving in this dysfunction and everything will be okay. um and no, it's not really the case. So, you know, you got to get the help. You got to do the work.
How do you think, because we often people in our age suffer from it too, because I think unfortunately things are kind of passed down, like you said, through family and genetics and other factors. We if we didn't necessarily experience it, how do we how do we how do we fight against it more so on a from a Gen Z perspective? Because we haven't dealt with certain things that they have dealt with on the previous generation. So how do we like navigate that? Is like therapy? Is it um talking to somebody? Is it breaking those generational curses and by just doing it? Like how do you think we go about that?
I would say if you've never personally experienced those things, um, maybe like talk with previous generations and kind of get an idea of some of their barriers that they experienced, and maybe ask them um what they would do if they hadn't encountered those barriers. And I would talk with maybe somebody from the 80s, 70s, or whatever, because everybody has different barriers that they dealt with. Like, for instance, my parents, they never really had to deal with a crazy amount of like racism or anything like that, but my grandparents did. Um, Now, there's a few instances where my parents might have dealt with it, but it wasn't to the same degree as the folks before. So, really, just having honest conversations about what they would do, if they hadn't experienced what they experienced.
Do you like you because your grandparents they lived in Mississippi their whole life too, right? Or did they move there?
My paternal grandparents lived in Louisiana. Um,
Okay.
part of the time they lived in New Jersey when my dad was coming up during the 70s, but
Yeah.
they lived in Louisiana mainly during like their younger years, like in the 40s and 50s, 60s, and such. So they experienced my grandma. She used to pick cotton. So she was one of those on my dad's side. I don't know so much about my maternal grandmother. My maternal grandmother was born in the 50s, and um she probably had some instances of it, but she did grow up. Well, I wouldn't say she grew up in the military, but she was a caretaker for my great grandmother, and eventually she joined the military. But you know the times were a little bit different, and the area of Louisiana that my maternal grandmother grew up on was a little bit different than where my paternal grandmother lived in. So it was a completely different culture.
Yeah, yeah. My granddad, he was kind of the same. He born in you know small town in Florida. He wasn't always like I don't know how to put it like because he wasn't always in the truth. He obviously somebody studied with him and because he was like a Baptist minister. But I think this is such a that whole thing about slavery just it really kind of shows itself in the generations afterwards because a lot of people in that age, like if you were in 70s or 80s, there's so much that you suffer from that you like and it affects parenting styles. I feel like it affects, how you view money. It's just there's so much that kind of goes into it. I think it's like you said, you gotta talk to them and kind of get like a an idea of
From the money,
how they view
yeah.
the world.
From the
Yeah,
money perspective, definitely, because when you think about, especially here in the South, a lot of the inheritance aspect, you offer, you give your kids a house, you pass the house on to the kids, and that it becomes the family home. Those things didn't happen with my folks, and that's what a lot of people out there don't understand. Um,
yeah.
the those are privileges that we didn't get, and for that reason, it set us back from a financial aspect. And so, if you're set back in one generation, subsequent generations are going to be set back, while other generations of a different race or whatever are a little bit further ahead. So it requires even harder work to catch up and to everyone else.
That's such a good point because you know other communities they tend to start off on third base. People didn't, like you said, people didn't. We didn't. I didn't grow up, because you know how like some families talk about, yeah, like you were just saying about having a house and the house is gonna be yours one day. We're gonna put it in your name, dude. My granddad, he put like the house that my dad grew up in throughout his entire life. He would put it in my dad's name. He would put it in some of my uncle's names. First and foremost, they gave him a loan, like it was some crazy, like a 30-year loan at like 60. They got him
Wow. Yeah, they
on
got
that house. I'm like, they got him. Like, why would you give a 20, 30-year loan on a 60-something-year-old man? Knowing good and well, he ain't gonna be able to pay this off eventually.
it.
He would put the deed in my uncle's name. Sometimes he couldn't, whatever his mood was that day, he would put it in one of their names. So we're not and I said this at the beginning, we're not taught certain things. And we're not taught how to, about having a house and having that help build your credit. And we're not taught about how, making payments and equity and insurance and all these other things because of that generational trauma. So it's just a lot.
Yeah. And I mean, like you said, and it's another point too, that, houses are assets, and
Yeah,
you have to take care of assets. A lot of our generation doesn't know anything about how to take care of an asset. We just know how to handle the liabilities part, which is the bills. And sometimes
yeah.
not even that. So, like I said, it's a big learning curve.
Why do you think some families normalize that type of dysfunction?
I think it's because they're not prepared to learn something new. Um, if you're gonna really see some serious changes in your life, you got to be inquisitive and be ready and eager to start asking questions about the things that you don't understand or know, because that's the only way you're gonna really do something about it, is by asking questions in general. And then from asking questions, you can ask the right questions and start doing the things and planning the things that you need to plan, um, to get your assets in order and to get your finances in order and things like that.
You think silence plays a factor? Like silence within families, does that reinforce it? That particular trauma?
You mean like silence as in not having conversations?
Yeah,
Definitely. That's a big one. People, and a lot of times that, I can get the emotional part, but people don't want to talk about life insurance, especially among black households. They don't want to talk about um what I'm gonna do if I pass on unexpectedly. You know, they just kind of write it off as some taboo thing that you just don't talk about. But when it happens to somebody, nobody wants to have to contend with, t-shirts and GoFundMe, because
yeah.
you might not even get the support that you're looking for that. So, you know, I think our generation, we gotta do better with preparation for things like that, or else we'll be caught up in debt. And those things happen.
Why do you think the person that ends up breaking that generational curse, why do you think they're often labeled the black sheep?
It's because they're not dancing to the same rhythm as the other people were dancing to. And they got tired of the monotony of it. And um, when you get tired of the rinse and repeat of the same routine and the same struggle, you're eventually gonna just, go for it and be the black sheep, because we only got so many years to live on this earth, and nobody wants to be stuck in the rinse and repeat over and over again. And so, sometimes, doing something different, it doesn't appeal to people. They like to be stuck in the same rhythm, but that's not for everybody.
Yeah,
Somebody
yeah,
gonna break the curse.
of course. Um, what is what is something that you had to unlearn from your childhood personally?
Ooh, I'm gonna say this. A lot of stuff I'm still unlearning. Like even at my big age, like sometimes I'm a worrywart. I have a lot of anxiety. And um, sometimes like I be making other people's problems my problem,
Yeah,
and I have to learn how to reel that in, because I will drive myself into the grave. Um, worrying too much about other people.
yeah, yeah. I'm kind of the same way. I'm definitely kind of the same way when it comes to that. Um, I think that Yeah, I think once you realize that, I think it's important to kind of to really, it's almost like a cancer. You have to cut it out. I think we've all had to learn that. I think that's very similar to kind of how I've had to unlearn things, and like you say, you still kind of unlearning things. I don't think you really stop, especially if you grew up a certain way. But but yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and try to bring this to a close because we're all kind of about an hour and a half in. But this was a great conversation.
Yeah, it was.
Appreciate I mean, I really appreciate you for coming on. This is a very different episode than what we usually do, but that's okay. We got to have these type of conversations. I think next time we can kind of get into other things because other things that I wanted to ask and talk about. That's been another episode of the It's Been a Minute podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Augustus. my guest today, and a great guest, man. My boy Darryl Mcclain. It's a really good episode, man. I really want y'all to take to heart the things that he was saying. It's very good stuff, very good info, guys. Anyway, we're gonna see y'all later, man. That's another one in the books. Peace.